Can you hear me in the cheap seats at the back? Good. It's nice to welcome Kelvin, sorry. Said to me this morning, wait for me to come, I'm going to a dance class. How is everybody this morning? Good? Is it still raining outside? No? Bright, sunny? Hopefully. Well, I'm Robin Brown, as you already know. I was pleased this morning that I spoke to Kelvin, because Kelvin tells me he enjoys gardening and he's got some raised beds and he likes to grow herbs. And he was going through the different types of herbs, and he came and he said, I like to grow basil. And my ears pricked up at that, and I thought, wow, Robert, you're pronouncing it wrong. In the UK, we say Basil. But obviously, respectfully, you say Basil. So if I say Basil, I mean Basil. Yeah. See if we switched it on. Oh. Go on. So this is the fifth talk of 7. And today it's not really a talk, it's more storytelling than a talk. And it's about Basil the Ghost. But before we start on storytelling, I'll just pick on something that we discussed yesterday. And this was to do with a case that I was sent via email about somebody who alleged to have had an electrical shock. And these are all the things that are alleged to have happened. What I didn't touch on yesterday is that we talked about an electrical arc and the sensation of an electrical shock and what occurs. And most often, when people allege to have had an electrical shock, they say something along the lines, well, it threw me physically backwards and I got sucked on the fingers and things like that. An electrical shock, the power in an electrical arc, an electrical shock, is not capable of physically throwing a human being backwards. Most often, it's the response of the muscles within the body. Like if you step on a nail or you touch something hot, you pull your arms away quickly. So, in a legal sense, it's not the electrical shock that's thrown us backward, it's the human response to the electrical shock that's thrown us backwards. So yesterday I received some more information about this, and the solicitor sent me this, and you can read it for yourself. I'll just give you a few minutes. So they sent me this picture. This is the thermostat. And what I see straight away is there's no cover on it. And this temperature dial is metallic. Well, it looks metallic in this instant. So the electrician's telling us that you can push that and you can touch live terminals that's behind it. So in this instance, in my mind, there's a possibility that the person did receive an electrical shock. So on the back of that, I will be asking for, apparently this thermostat's not been retained, so we can't inspect it. So I'll be asking for electrical certificates from the property for a period of probably 10 years before this incident to see that their electrical systems were in order. I will be asking to to speak to the electrician to see if he's produced any report about his findings. I'll also be looking into his credentials to see if he's an electrician of standing to present that information. And then I'll compile all this into a report for the solicitor. I just thought I'd pick up on that point. But to move on. Today's talk is about the real king of thieves, which focuses on the Hatton Garden jewellery heist, which was made into a film referred to as King of Thieves. Who's seen the film? One up there. I have to admit, I've not seen it. But this is the trailer for it. Or it should be the trailer for it. Do I have to start it? Sorry? There you go.
It's the biggest robbery in British criminal history. They were extremely professional. Unorganised outfit. Okay? Hey? What?
There's a pun.
The first job I got arrested for, I was 17, but Hatton Garden was an itch could never scratch.
Yeah, it's cracking, Brian. We'll be dead tomorrow.
If I can round up the right people,
There's some young blokes in. It wasn't an officer. We're not capable.
so disappointed when I got returned to Basil. Round like a wind. You tell a single soul about this, and I'll cut your balls off. Nice play with the head.
So, Hatton Garden is a suburb of Holborn in London, and it's an area of many jewellers and gold deposits and jewellery deposit boxes. And as you can see, this picture on the left is this main street around Hatton Garden, and this is the front of Hatton Garden Safe Depository. And so I'm told, I read, that at the time, the perpetrators stole £14 million worth of jewels, which is back in 2015, I think, which is now £24 million. And at present, only £7.3 million has been recovered. The heist was planned by 8 elderly gentlemen. I think that's being a bit polite, 8 elderly gentlemen. Basically, they're all career criminals, and they were coming to the end of their career as criminals, so they thought they'd have one last big try at doing a big robbery. So, here's another video. This is what they did.
It was over the Easter bank holiday weekend that thieves broke into this premises, Hatton Garden Safe Deposit Limited. One of the group made it through these doors, through the building, and out towards the fire escape side door, which he opened from within and allowed the rest of the group in to this corridor. With wheelie bins and other equipment, they made their way through this corridor and down this steel staircase into the courtyard at the rear of the premises. They then made their way into the foyer area outside Hatton Garden Safety Deposit Limited. And it's through this white door that the airlock within Hatton Garden Safety Deposit Limited is located. The group made their way up these stairs and into the ground floor foyer area of 80 to 90 Hatton Garden. before then making their way up the stairs to the second floor. Once on the second floor, they called the lift and disabled it on the second floor. They returned to the ground floor, opened the lift doors on the ground floor and dropped the 12 to 14 feet into the well within the lift shaft. They placed an out of order sign on the door on the ground floor. Once inside the lift shaft, in the basement footwell, they opened the doors and were confronted with this shutter. This was forced open, allowing them access to the airlock within Hatton Garden Safe Deposit Limited. Once in this airlock, they were able to force their way back out of the main door for Hatton Garden Safe Deposit Limited into the foyer area. Carrying through the larger tools, including drills and grinding equipment, they attacked this second door, forcing up the bars and subsequently forcing the door open. Once in this further corridor, they were now outside the vault door, in which contains 999 storage boxes. During the first night, they spent their time drilling this 51 centimetre hole of cement, but were confronted with the rear of the safe deposit cabinets. They were unsuccessful in forcing these cabinets over, and on the first night left the premises, having not made their entry into the vault itself. They returned on the second night with an extra piece of equipment, a hydraulic pump. With this equipment, they were able to force over the cabinets and make their way through the hole and into the vault. It's inside this vault that they broke into in excess of 70 safety deposit boxes and removed the contents and took them back up through the fire escape and out to their waiting van before making off.
Quite nice, yeah? Sorry? Well, that's where I come in. The gentleman says, don't they have no alarms? Yes, we do. Oops, wrong way. So, these are the gentlemen, the perpetrators, the motley crew. I think it'll be interesting to try and guess which characters in the film actually portray which. But we'll go through them one by one. So this is Teddy Perkins. Well, you can read this 67 career criminal. Looks a bit annoyed there, doesn't he, police photograph? This one, John Collins. This makes me smile, this. I think that's a bit derogatory to wombats myself. I mean, wombats, but you get the gist. It's sort of like painting a good picture, this, isn't it? This guy, drilling expert. You see why they made a film of this. I think this Brian Reader, I think he was the main ringleader of the gang, the brains. And we have these three gentlemen on the bottom row. We've got this guy. He was a plumber actually. Never took part in the robbery, but helped dispose of the loot. I like this one. William Billy the Fish Lincoln. Apparently he worked at Billingsgate Fish Market. That's where he gets his name, Billy the Fish. Carl Wood. Apparently he left halfway through. And then finally this guy, Basil the Ghost. Now, you could recognise all these other people from video surveillance, but they couldn't recognise Basil. He was on the videos, and we'll look at one in a minute, but they couldn't put a name or even see his face. But what they could determine from the video is that he had a walking gait, a distinct walking gait. So we talked about in the very first lecture about the differences in forensic science, forensic podiatry, the study of feet, the study of walking gaits. I think we've got another video here. Excuse me. Oh, before we look at the video, because this case was, or this burglary, we have to refer to it as a burglary, as I was reminded when we were in court, because in UK law, there's a distinction between a burglary and a robbery. And a robbery, I understand, I'm only a simple electrical engineer, is something that's undertaken with malice. In other words, there's guns and koshes and things like that. The burglary is just, doesn't use any of that, it's just a burglary. But this was handed to a department within the Metropolitan Police referred to as the Flying Squad. And I don't know why it is, but there seems to be a lot of criminals down in London. Most of them are Cockneys, and they have this Cockney rhyming slang, so they refer to it as Sweeney Todd, the demon barber of Fleet Street. Sweeney Todd, Flying Squad. So they're used to dealing with organised crime, and in the UK we've had numerous television series and things like that, one being this one called The Swede. And you may recognise this character here, which in The Swede, correct me if I'm wrong, was it Jack Carter? Jack Reed, thank you very much. But I think you might have known, some people might know that he's morphed now into Inspector Morse, which is another famous British detective series as well. So this is another video, and this demonstrates, this is from actual footage, and this shows Basil walking away, and I put these little green arrows so I can actually pinpoint. As it started, can't see properly. Oh no, we need to be here. There we go, this is better. So I think in the top right hand corner you'll see Basil walking along the road with his load of loot. Here he is. And here he is again. So I guess all these videos, this is video data evidence. It's collected from various CCTV cameras. So there he is. And I'm just going to move it on now to here. So this is actually inside. And we can see Basil. He's got ginger hair, which apparently was a wig, and he's wearing a cap, or a snood, or a beanie, or whatever they call it. Here he is again with his friends. So they couldn't identify Basil from the CCTV footage. However, our friends in the flying squad undertook surveillance, and they followed some of the gang before they were arrested, and they saw this, I think it's Terry Collins, actually, this guy, liaising with this gentleman in a park in Shoreditch, which is in northern London. And they filmed all this, and they started to note the walking gait. And the Metropolitan Police engaged an expert in podiatry and matched the way that this guy walked against the CCTV images. I thought, that's our man. So what they did is they raided a flat in Lewisham, which I think is South East London, the flat of a gentleman called John Micheal Seed. And they found a lot of electronic development equipment, a lot of papers, and they also found a lot of jewels in the wardrobe in his property. And so they arrested John Micheal Seed, Basil the Ghost, and that's where I come in. So I was sat at my desk one day, and I received an email with an attachment from counsel and advocate. And he sets out in there, I've highlighted the pertinent bits which I thought might be of interest. I particularly like this paragraph here. I was just reading it again. What struck me when I read this, just to a blocker or a jammer is an electronic device that will block telephone signals. So this device, it's only a small thing. It just emits electromagnetic radiation of the same frequency as a mobile phone, so the mobile phone will work. But what struck me is why anybody as an electronic hobbyist would want to build one of these things. And if you was building one of these things to sell, who would want to buy one? I mean, I can't see there being a massive market for it, you know. But so that's what I received when I first saw this and thought, ooh, this is going to be interesting, this one. But also, Seed was involved in another robbery, Chatilla, which is on Bond Street in London, which is a street full of jewellers. And the same, I understand through trial and what went off, the same process, not gain of access, but the same way of disabling alarms was used in Chatilla as it was in Hatton Garden. Of interest to me was this device which he found in his flat. So this is a picture that I grabbed from somewhere. It says, well, you can read it. Electronics Eats Flat, but I was interested in this because it says it's a telephone network simulator. Well, what would you want one of those for? What would a normal electronic enthusiast want one of those for? So, I was called, after receiving this instruction, I was asked to inspect all this equipment. And from previous occasions of inspecting pieces of evidence, particularly where police were involved, I've fallen into a trap. Because I remember doing a case where a gentleman had bought what he said was a car reversing aid. an electronic device that he attached to his car. When he was reversing the car, it used to bleep when it gets near to the wall, I believe. But also this electronic device was able of detecting speed cameras. And so the police had picked him up speeding a few times and found this device, and they were going to prosecute him because it's an illegal device. And I went up to York to inspect this device, and the arresting police officer came in with this device, and we went in a room, and he wouldn't let us out of his sight because it was the piece of evidence. And I couldn't do anything with it but visually inspect it. So this matter went to York Crown Court, and my opponent had other devices most similar to this, which the police had supplied to him, and he'd taken them apart and built up all his case on his investigation, which meant that as two experts, he was given more privileged access than I was. I'll talk about another incident in the last presentation. But when I was asked to look at this, equipment, I was a little bit more knowledgeable. And so I said, I didn't know I was talking to the flying squad at that time. I mean, these are top guys, all commanders and lieutenants and things like that. Yes, I'm coming down. I want to be in a separate room on my own. I want no police in there at all. And I will inspect this for the length of time I want to do it. Yes, sir, no problem. So I went down to Woolwich Crown Court and put me in a room. These guys brought in all this electronic equipment in evidence bags. There were plastic bags sealed with numbers on things like that, which I went through sequentially one by one, took photographs, inspected and things like that. So Woolwich Crown Court is in South London. It's a new court, and it's a new court because it's been built at the side of Belmarsh Prison. And Belmarsh Prison has nickname Hellmarsh, or Britain Guantanamo Bay, and it holds a lot of, extremists and really high-profile accused political causing unrest. There are some notorious people in there as well. They held Seed in Belmarsh, and at Belmarsh there's an underground passageway from the prison into the court and into specific courtrooms. So we went to trial. And these were the major players in the trial. This was the judge, Chris Kinch, KC, King's Counsel, Philip Evans for the prosecution, and Richard Sutton for Seed. So I went down to Woolwich Crown Court. I was asked to go on a particular day, and I went early in the morning, and I met Sutton in the restaurant in Woolwich Crown Court. And just to give you an indication, Crown Courts, any courts, are fantastic places to people watch, because it pictures the two extremes of society as I see it. You get barristers and solicitors at one end, and at the other end you get people who are accused or whatever. And you can see in the faces that their liberty, their life, or whatever they've done is in the hands of these people at these times. It's a fascinating thing to watch. And I met Sutton in the refectory, the canteen, the coffee shop. Small guy, very well spoken, and he was sat with his junior barrister, who was a big lad, very jovial. Just to add a little bit more of information, back home, I play in a brass band, like a brass orchestra. And on my CV, it says at the bottom, plays principal tuba in Hatfield and Aston Colliery Band. And Sutton had picked up on this one. He said, "Oh, good morning, Robert. I see you playing a band." I goes, "Yes," and his junior goes, "Oh, Richard plays in a band as well." So we naturally think, he plays in a brass band. I said, "Oh, which band's that?" And the junior says, "They call us the Briefs." And I'm thinking, well, I've never heard of a brass band called the Briefs. And he says, "Oh, we're a rock band. Richard's the lead guitarist." And I'm thinking, wow, this is going to be a great rock band, this. But anyway, these were the three main players in the trial. And this is Basil the Ghost, John Micheal Seed. Now his father is a professor, or was a professor, of biophysics at Cambridge University. So the lad, I would say, hereditary rumour, was a clever lad, knew what he was doing. I have read reports that he'd been to the University of Nottingham and he got a degree in electronics, so I don't know if that's correct. And this guy is Basil in the film. What do you think? Any resemblance? I think they made the film before it actually called Basil. But I think the bits that I've seen of the film, they made this guy out to be a bit of a comical guy. He wasn't like that at all. He was a very quiet, diligent man. And quite often, during the trial, I explained this yesterday, the barristers are at the front bench and I sit behind. And then behind me is the dock where the accused sits. And in this particular court, it's a very wide dock and it's covered in glass. So there's no physical probability of the guy jumping over and doing whatever. And Seed, you'd be sat in court in the morning and then you turn around and you'd be there because you come with this underground tournament and come up. And in court, there was actually an exact physical replica of this concrete wall. It was made out of polystyrene, and it was an exact copy with these three holes drilled in it. And physically, it was 25 centimetres high, and it was 45 centimetres wide, and in depth, it was 55 centimetres. Now, I know I'm not fat, but I looked at it, and I wouldn't have been able to have got through there. So some of the people in this gang must have been unconceivers like me. He was a very demure character, small, wiry. So I think he was the one that went through. So as we're in court, I'll be sat there and Seed would knock on the glass and he'd send me these little notes, love letters. So he was picking up on things as things progressed in the trial and just indicating to me where we were. And even this shows to me that he was a mind that he was thinking, yeah, this is where we are, exactly. So I think his involvement extends beyond being an electronic enthusiast. So during the trial, and trials can get very intense, and especially when you're being cross-examined. And I was called to be cross-examined, and we cross-examined by both barristers for the prosecution and the defence. And Sutton, the defence barrister, was a very seasoned criminal barrister, and I think he understood how people react when giving evidence in court. The first thing they ever do, you have to undertake an oath. I hereby swear that by Almighty God the evidence I shall give is true. But you also have to give your name as well. My name is Dr. Robert Ernest Brown, etc. But then they get out your CV and they go through it, in order. You are a doctor of electrical engineering, you did a PhD, and you've done this, and you did this. So basically, they're explaining to the court, because on the court record of your credentials to give expert evidence. And Sutton got to the end, and at the end it says interests and pastimes. He says to the court, and I see that you are the principal tuba player of Hatfield and Aston Quarry Band. And the judges sat with all his red on them, and he looked up and he went, I don't see how this is relevant to this case, Mr. But I see that was Sutton's way of calming me down before I gave evidence. So, it all boiled down to this, and this comes from the first lecture on the balance of probabilities. On the balance of probabilities, Seed was involved with the killing. Not on the balance of probabilities, forgive me. Beyond all reasonable doubt, it's a criminal matter. In Seed's flat, they found him in possession of millions of pounds worth of jewellery, things like that. So possession of stolen goods and the implication through the walking gate, he was involved, so he was convicted of that. And he got 10 years in prison. They also tried to convict him of being the perpetrator in disabling the alarms, and that's where I came in. And beyond all reasonable doubt, prosecution couldn't convict, because although they found all this electronic development equipment, we argued that, okay, he could have disabled the alarms, but he could have been an electronic enthusiast, he could have been a radio amateur, he could have been somebody who just liked messing about with electrical circuits and things like that. So we introduced this element of doubt, and so they couldn't convict him on that count. So got 10 years for having all the jewellery. And the other thing is that I also read that recently he's been asked to pay something like £6 million back, and he got a date to do that by. How we would do this, I don't know. But he'd been asked to pay this money back, and since he didn't, he's been given another 7 years. So he's in there for quite a long time. So that is the real king of thieves. And they all look happily correct. So that's the story. I hope it hasn't cast any enjoyment of your film if you want to watch it, but is there any questions at all? It was it wasn't a pneumatic drill, it was a cylindrical diamond-tipped drill. And you're quite right in that when one of those is actually in operation, it does make a lot of noise. But if you recall, this was done over, we call it a bank holiday weekend. In the US, I think we call it a long weekend. So in London, there's not many people about. And yeah, they did it over at least a weekend. And so in London, during the night, there wouldn't be many people about anyway, and the noise emitted from it. They probably just think it'd be workmen doing some other work somewhere else. But you could be correct. Yeah. Any other questions? Just one. Sorry, just the lady saying how much time passed from the actual robbers to when they were caught. Quite quickly, actually, within 4 to 6 weeks. I think because they were seasoned criminals, and the police, the flying squad, they were already on their records, and they got video evidence. And the guy, one back fleet, actually went to his car so they could trace that, and he fell asleep. So, all being seasoned criminals, they weren't very intelligent, I think. Yes, sir. Yeah, they've not recovered the vast majority of it. Yeah. And I think this brings in this thing, you know, this recent Louvre robbery. and they've stolen the French crown jewels. It always makes me wonder how they would actually dissipate that. They'd have to melt gold down with it, but jewels they'd have to recut and whatever. Yes, sir.
So are you more up on the prosecution or the defense side? Do you have a preference?
I don't have a preference really. Sometimes it's more challenging on the defence because and people might, how can a barrister defend somebody who they know beyond all reasonable doubt is guilty? And I think people have to have a special mindset to do that. It's difficult. But I think I prefer, put me on a point here, I think I defend defence. They're all right at the back there, yes sir.
Why the name Basil the Ghost?
Well, I think the ghost comes from the fact that they couldn't identify him. And I think the Basil thing is something that the within the gang they'd nicknamed him that. I think I have read somewhere that they all had nicknames. I mean, like Billy the Fish and the Governor and Wombat Thick and some of the others. I think one of them's a grave digger, I don't know. It's all very Hollywood, this, isn't it? But I think it's true. Any more questions, please? Right, well, if you have any questions and you see me about the book, please come and talk to me. Thank you. So, tomorrow we have another talk. I understand it's at 10 o'clock. And this will go on, we'll go into things that's been his intellectual property, Mr. McConey. You've copied our invention. And this case, Royal Courts of Justice in the Strand, it's an interesting one. So thank you for your attention. I hope you enjoy your day. And maybe I'll see you around the ship.